This video is brought to you by Patreon supporter Sparks.
Just when you thought you've seen it all, someone like Sparks throws a wrench into your machine. Hey C, you want to review my 4.5 to 27, which by the way I might be interested in selling? Yes, I do, Sparks. Yes, I do. This needs absolutely no introduction. This is the Gen 2 Razor HD 4.5 to 27 by 56.
And that's all we need to look at with that. Moving on, we're going to focus our attention obviously to the reticle. This is a first focal plane scope, and the reticle being seen here is the EBR-2C. It's been featured twice before on the channel, both the PST and the other Gen 2 3 to 18. It might not be the best reticle. I think I'd prefer the 7C for the fine center dot for aiming, but that's just me. Unfortunately, when you're buying optics used, you have to deal with what you can get. And I'm just happy to say that all three of mine are the same reticle, because going between the PST Gen 2 and both of my Razor HD Gen 2s, having very similar controls against all three of them and the exact same reticle means that when I train for it, it's very easy to pick up from one to the next. This of course is in first focal plane, so as we increase the magnification from 4.5 to its maximum of 27, the reticle changes size along with it. The reticle is very sharp and clear, and the center opening is a lot nicer than a full crosshair. Illumination on this scope is as good as you're going to get on a larger magnified optic like this. The ZP5 that I just reviewed, the illumination was okay. Here I feel it's a little bit better, and it works as well as you could hope for. At maximum magnification, the illumination is sharp, clear, with very little bleed out. There's only one sort of imperfection with this optic that I have found over the course of using it for several months, and that is at 4.5x, which I'm about to zoom all the way out, and you could see the ring around it at minimum magnification. For whatever reason, this scope has a weird ghostly ring at 4.5, which we're going to talk about more soon. The turn indicator right there will come out another full step above that if you have your zero low enough. There's a touch of play in these turrets, but the overall feel is fantastic.
Maximum magnification. Let's get the illumination going, see what that looks like. There you have it. It looks fantastic. It gets invisible around 7 in this environment, but at maximum it is pretty good. All right, we can clearly see that it looks like everything is lining up extremely close. Might not be 100% perfect, but it's really, really close. We're going to do our box test. Ten. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So across 4 mils up and left, it's looking pretty good. Probably about half a click left, but that's well within acceptable for me. Uh-oh, it looks like when we re-zeroed this, we lost about a click of elevation. So let's re-zero it real quick, just to confirm. Here's our 0. Let's do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Uh-oh. Looks like we got not only, I'm going to call it about 1.5 clicks, which is 1.5 to 2% on the elevation, but we also have a slight discrepancy of about a half a click to a 3/4 of a click left, at least in this particular version that I have, which has been pre-loved, but not that much. The scope looks brand new, as you saw. Let's re-zero this. So right there, it looks like everything's lining up extremely well. I can't say that the reticle looks canted on any of those lines. And there is our 0. That is 10 mils. We have the exact same location. 1.5 clicks up, so about 1.5% at 10 mils, plus that slight left hold discrepancy.
If I'm honest, I was expecting a little bit better out of it, but at least 1.5% is usually inside the realm of acceptable difference for most manufacturer specs. There at 4.5x, you could see the ring that I was mentioning earlier. Illumination on full on a day like today is not going to be bright enough to showcase it, but again, on a larger magnified optic, it's not really much of an issue. That ring will be there until you bump the magnification up ever so slightly, as you just saw. The 3-18 Gen 2 also had a very similar ring like that. I don't know why, but that's just the way they are. It's without a doubt the biggest imperfection that these scopes have. However, that's a very minor gripe as opposed to how the image looks as you see it before you. At 27x, this scope just makes in our minimum side focus of 32 yards here at this 30-yard power transformer. The image looks absolutely fantastic, and it's great to know that you can use this thing at its maximum magnification, even really close at 32 yards. So if you're looking for a rimfire scope, even though it might be a little bit overkill for most people, this thing has got you covered. The VORTEX brand throw lever on this thing is fantastic. I recommend throw levers for basically everybody, especially when you're changing magnifications all the time, which I tend to do a lot on these reviews, obviously. And just so you know, it works great. The magnification ring is also buttery smooth, as it is on every razor that I've ever got my hands on. The controls, the inputs are just fantastic. Image here again at 30 yards, no different from what we just saw. It is incredible, with very little to no chromatic aberration that I can personally see. But we'll change that up a little bit as we push our distance back to about 400 yards. Pulling the magnification back again to 4.5x, there is that ring that I've been talking about. It's the only real imperfection that I can see, and again, as you saw earlier in total darkness with the illumination on full, it illuminates itself. But that's very rare circumstances where the illumination is a little bit too bright at lower magnification. Once you crack the magnification up past 5, it completely disappears. What you're left with is a very nice clear image to look through. Now, one thing about this scope that I have to rant and rave about is the side focus. It is so easy to get everything in focus super quickly with this thing. With the ZP5, I'm only mentioning it because it was the most recent review that I've done. The side focus on that was very, very touchy. What it allowed you to do is get your image or your target in perfect clarity and everything else to be a little bit out of focus. But not everyone likes that, myself included. It just took too long to get everything just right. Whereas with this, the knob is so big, you have such a large throw, it's almost 300 degrees of adjustability, and it just makes everything snap right into focus, and it is so fantastic. I've mentioned it numerous times when I was recording this, just how incredible it is to get on focus. And the image speaks for itself. It is flawless. Zero chromatic aberration on this bright sunny day. You can count every single brick. I'm going to throw a little bit of a comparison in soon to show you what this scope looks like compared to other scopes of varying price points. But this thing performs as well as you'd expect for the price point. Speaking of price point, while I pull the focus out to 30-yard power lines before pushing it back to 800 yards in the power tower, these things can be had for around $1,700-1,800 new, which in my opinion is a lot of performance for the price. However, if you're a frugal individual like myself, you can find these used for about $1,500. I said in the beginning of this video that Sparks was thinking about selling it, and within a day or two of me handling it and using it and playing around with it, I immediately sent him the money because for the price that he was asking for it from me, I couldn't say no. And how could you with an image like that? The edge-to-edge sharpness is fantastic throughout the entire magnification range. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it will still perform at this level all the time. Speaking of performing at longer distances, let's go out to our longest at 1,000 yards. We're not going to spend too much time here, only because we don't really need to. The proof is in the pudding, and we had a lot of, as you can see, mirage going on this hot sunny day. I immediately crank it up to 10 mils, and we've reset. The image gets a touch darker, but similar again to the ZP5, the eyebox shifts down maybe a 32nd to a 16th of an inch. If I adjust the camera ever so slightly, the brightness comes there, and all the sharpness that was there is there again. It's as good as a performance as I've seen through any optic at this price point or magnification range. I mentioned very briefly that this thing performs fairly well in low light conditions, and here we are around 8 p.m. at the end of summer. Illumination on maximum at 4.5 gives you that ring, but the second we increase the magnification, it completely disappears. Now, did you notice that? Zooming all the way into 27x really didn't make that much of a difference in the overall brightness looking through the optic. It is excellent. The 34mm tube tied in with the 56mm front objective and the HD glass in this thing really allows for a stellar image in low light conditions like this. So as long as you're not using it in pitch black conditions, you're going to be able to see whatever you're looking at with very good clarity and resolution. Excellent, excellent performance. Getting back to my home away from home, we were at one of the other 50 lines at my local range. This is a great example if you're going to be using this for a .22 rifle or if you're going to be shooting it at very close distances. Illumination at full is clearly not visible on a very bright sunny day like today, and again, you don't need it to be. If you do, you're probably using this for the wrong thing. We go at a little bit too close of a target. This one's at about 15 yards, and of course, at maximum magnification, we can't get it focused, so we quickly pass on to the 50-yard target. Here, you will see a number of 22 LR holes tied in with 30 caliber holes from an M1 carbine. Paying a little bit closer attention, you can easily make out all those holes with absolute ease. No need for a spotting scope with this thing inside of, I'd say, about 150 yards. And we'll prove that a little bit later. Everything is as clear as you could hope for, and what more do you really want? These soda cans are about 60 yards away, and the glass in this thing is so good you could almost make out the text on the label to the left. Fantastic. I take a couple of pop shots with my .22 just to give a little more life to the image, and I will say this. Pew! 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 We focus our attention slightly left on these very beat up steel plates. The glass is so good you could just make up all the dimples on the plate to the right. It's almost like you could reach the screen and feel it. It's excellent. Pew! And now on to the almighty Eyebox Test. Here at 4.5, it's very good forward to backwards, but side to side is a little bit tighter than I might like. But I am delighted to say that it stays consistent even when we bump the magnification up to 10x that you're about to see right now. So between 4.5 to 10x, the Eyebox doesn't feel that much different, which is an accomplishment in my opinion. Because, yeah, I like the lower end of the magnification range to be really open so you can get behind it and get on target quickly, but it's nice to know that it's the same between 4.5 and 10. So if you have really good muscle memory, you can get behind it so easily. Here at 15x, it starts to get a little bit tighter like you would expect on any magnification on any scope out there, but it's still very usable. Now, it's clearly too bright to have the illumination on and see it, but if you have the illumination on and you're off in the shadows, you're not going to see the illumination. So just keep that in mind if you plan on using this in darker environments and thinking that you could be off the scope. Here at 27x, could you expect it to be any more forgiving than this? Not really. Given the price point of this thing, it still performs as good as you're going to find on any scope that I've reviewed on this channel, but hopefully I'll find one that just absolutely blows us away. Until that time, however, let's just continue doing what we're doing and have a little bit of fun. We focus our attention at the 100-yard paper targets here at the large bore range, and I am delighted to say that, again, one of the big standout features for me in this scope is the side focus. Without a shadow or question of doubt, it makes getting on target that much easier. No matter what magnification you're at, no matter what distance you're at, time of day, this scope just allows you to focus on that target, whatever it might be, as easily and as quickly as you could possibly imagine. It is superb. The holes that are on this target, I'm not too sure exactly what caliber they were from, but they're very easy to pick up. I think they're mostly 223, and here at 100 yards, it's a joke to think that the scope wouldn't be able to showcase them as beautifully as it does. Raising up from the paper target, we focus at 180 to 190 yard berm, and again the side focus makes it an absolute snap to get into focus. You can see all the imperfections on the steel plate as well as a lot of the small sticks on the dirt berm. Image, I'll just continue to say it, it is razor sharp as far as the clarity goes. Again, for the price of these things, the performance I feel surpasses the cost all day long. We pan across the berm and we are about to focus our attention on the 200 yard paper targets just to see how well we can read the rings and the black. As we zoom all the way in and I tweak the side focus ever so slightly, not only can we see the rings and the black with super ease, but you could also make out the bullet holes in the black as well as the 22 LR holes in the white at 12 o'clock outside the 9 ring. So again, if you're shooting a 22 LR or 223 here at 200 yards, you don't even need a spider scope if you have this thing mounted on top of your rifle. We pan across the 200 yard line one more time to take a look at the targets to the far right. I believe those are 3-inch, 4-inch, and then like an 8-inch gong over there. And again, you don't even need to be at maximum magnification to see these damn things. But when you are, you can again see every single imperfection. And every time someone's missed the target and shot through the steel support bar on top. Now, we're about to go look at the 300 yard paper, and that's where, things will get a little more challenging to see as far as bullet holes go, unless you do through a high shoot and see target like you see here. But I'm going to start changing up the way I do these reviews a little bit to cut them a little bit shorter, because almost 30 minutes is a long time. There's one big caveat with the scope for most people, and that's the weight. It is 50, I repeat, 50 ounces of Japanese overbuilt tankness, and that's a lot of weight for a lot of people. However, if you're looking for a PRS style rifle or to cut down on felt recoil, a heavier scope is a good way to go. If you're not overly familiar with the weights of scopes, just to give you a comparison, the Arkin SH4 Gen 2 6-24 is only 36 ounces. That's a 14-ounce difference. That's an entire LPVO off the weight of the scope, so it's a huge amount. 300 yard steel targets are fantastic. Again, you could see all of the imperfections and dimples on the surface of the plates, and it's just one of the best images for the price that I think you can really get, and have something that you can trust and rely on. I would trust this scope to be used as a hammer for driving nails into boards, and still hold a 0 and still function as well as possible. And not only that, but let's say if you accidentally shot it or dropped it off a building or ran over it with a tank, VORTEX is going to replace it, no questions asked. Tie that in again with the performance that we've seen as far as the glass clarity, as far as all the mechanics of it. Everything is fantastic. And it is again why I think that this is one of the best used optics on the market. It's still expensive, but you're getting something that you can hand me down to your kids and your kids' kids. Now, with all of that being said, and echoing what I said a few minutes ago, I'm going to change up the style of review a little bit. I'm not going to finish this off on the tabletop, comparing it with different optics and weights and whatnot. I already did that. I'm just going to give my final thoughts while you're still looking through this thing at different environments, just to hopefully keep your attention spans a little bit longer without making this a 35-minute long video. This is one of the best top-tier used scopes you can get for the money on the market right now. It's not going to fit everyone's bill. If you're looking for something lighter, go elsewhere. But if you're looking for something that's going to be bulletproof and withstand the test of time, this is without a doubt something that I would absolutely recommend. If you think the magnification range is a little bit too big for you, go for the 3-18. If you think it's still a bit more expensive, go for the PST, and you could always sell that or jump into a Razor HD and have very similar controls, if you're lucky, the exact same reticle and a good sense of muscle memory from going from one to the other, so you can use it to its maximum abilities no matter what the case is. Now, I'm not saying that this is the number one, get it and don't think of anything else. There are lighter and clearer scopes out there. The Minox is one of those. There are less expensive scopes that still perform really close to this, 80, 90% I would say. But as a whole, this thing is very, very hard to beat. So you got to keep that in mind and take it with a grain of salt, just like everything else. For the 3% of people out there that think that I actually have this mounted on a rifle and I'm pointing it at animals right now, you are sadly mistaken. I love animals, nor am I stupid enough to point a gun at anything that I don't want to have a hole in it. But just take it in and enjoy it for what it is. A fantastic piece of glass and something that I'd have no intentions of selling anytime soon. And you know what? Just to top this off real quick, let's do a quick side-by-side comparison between this scope and a couple other scopes of similar magnification ranges to give you a sense of what you could expect. To conclude this review with a comparison like I promised, on the left we have our Razor HD and on the right the ZP-5. Now, the ZP-5 looks really good where it's focused at, which is on the bricks, but look at the trees beforehand and then compare it to the left with the Razor HD. See a difference? I could understand if Minox did this for a particular reason, so this way you're paying closer attention to your target, but me, I prefer the focus of the Razor HD by comparison. Now, to make a very minor, albeit not identical comparison, let me pull out the PST Gen 2 3-15. Both of these obviously feature the same EBR-2C reticle, and these are both at 15x indicated, but albeit completely different times of year. I'm going to bring out the Optica 6 in just a little bit, but at least here you get a sense for just how good a sharpness can be between a mid-tier scope and a high-tier scope like this Razor. And that's going to be it for this review. A huge thank you to Patreon provider Sparks for sending this thing into review and for letting me purchase it off of him. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and I plan on using it on one of my 22LR rifles that I plan on using all the time, because guess what? Whether it's on a 22 or not, if I could use it, I'm going to use it. Thank you all very much for watching. See you again next time. And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.